Good morning and welcome to the Stahls TV Morning Show. Today we have an exciting episode planned. We have a lot of things we want to do. We're pretty interactive, so we're going to ask for a lot of participation from you guys as well, which is why we have the bag here to get us started. But we have a lot of things that have been happening here at the Stahls TV studio. Obviously, we're excited to be back from Long Beach. It was a really great show. Thanks to those of you that stopped by the booth and said hello. We enjoyed meeting our viewers. So if you stop by a trade show anytime this year, feel free to look for Josh, Zach, and I, and we enjoy meeting our viewers and learning a little bit about you guys as well.
Absolutely. Before we get down to business, there's an item of discussion I must bring to your attention. This happened. So first off, you can't see, but behind the screen working the camera angles and everything for us is Joe Kaczynski. He helps us every week. Just so happens to be wearing the same shirt as me. So we got into a conversation about whether or not I've repeated an outfit on the morning show. And I think we counted I've worn this shirt 3 or 4 times. But somebody had mentioned that you've never repeated an outfit on the morning show. Is this something intentional that you strive to do?
I have a calendar. Yeah, it definitely shows what I've worn.
You seriously have a calendar?
I don't. But my husband will attest I have a lot of clothes, so I can...
All right.
It gives me an excuse to shop.
All right, well, we're talking about heat printing clothes. But I just thought that was interesting, and somebody brought it up. So I thought our viewers should know. We're going to watch Courtney. And see if we can get to a year without her repeating an outfit.
Now the pressure's on.
Pressure's on. But anyways, we're back from Long Beach talking about top challenges of decorators and really questions. We got your questions in the bag. But if you have questions throughout today's session, please type those in. Joe, who's dressed alike, will share those with me and with Courtney, and we'll do our best to address those throughout today's session. So let's start out. What do you think?
All right.
All right. So the idea here is we're taking viewer questions that we've collected from the Stahls TV forum, and this question is a good one to start with. I'm looking for the best advice for investing in a heat press. It won't run every day, maybe not for weeks at a time, but want to produce a quality product. What are your suggestions?
That's a good question. So of course everybody has their opinion, but I think when you're talking about starting a t-shirt business, obviously quality is the most important thing. So being able to have a quality heat press that provides, whether you're printing 2 shirts a month or 1,000 shirts a month, you need something that's going to produce something that matches the quality you want people to think you have, and that falls into having a heat press with a heating element that's durable and it's going to last the lifetime of the heat press. As far as style goes, everybody has their preferences. Personally, I like a clam style to start out with. It's got a small space. It's kind of portable, so it doesn't take up a lot of room if you're doing it out of your house.
Okay.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I'd start with time, temperature, and pressure for sure. So definitely, style, you can make the choice on what's most comfortable. Clam is nice because it's portable and you can tuck it into a corner if you're only going to use it occasionally, and it's in a spare bedroom. But accuracy in time, temperature, and pressure is key. You can get that out of economy-based heat press. I definitely recommend one that's U.S. manufactured. Of course, we recommend Stahls, no surprise. But something that has accuracy across the whole heating element is key and is going to deliver that accurate time, temperature, and pressure. So the Stahls Max is a good unit to start out, but really, and I think one of the top challenges for decorators is really pressure and measuring pressure. And so the Max, while you can feel the pressure, it doesn't give you a true pressure readout on the machine. So you compromise a little bit of that pressure when you go for the Max versus something with an actual digital readout.
Good point.
So just, before we leave that point, let's just talk a little bit about accuracy and heat printing with time, temperature, and pressure. What are some of the common mistakes with pressure other than not having a true readout and accuracy?
I think there's 2 ends of the spectrum. There's over-applying pressure and under-applying pressure. And with under-applying a pressure, I think it normally ends up being just your inability to get the item flat on the heat press. And so that's one of the big challenges that we see once you move from your basic cotton t-shirt into more items like pants and sweatshirts and bags, and being able to actually get them to where all of the seams and all of the pockets are minimized, and the transfer is the first thing the heat press hits, really. So a couple tools to do that. Obviously, I have them here with me. Heat printing pillows are very beneficial. If you have a heat press that's threadable, I prefer being able to use the interchangeable platens. This one's a 6x10, but being able to actually switch them out and get a nice flat print area, that's helpful. The pillow as well as a pad are more or less for those presses where you don't have the interchangeable platen options.
Okay, so pressure, getting your item flat is key, and then achieving accurate pressure. So if somebody, we get it flat, right, like in this bag, we get rid of all the seams, we have the perfect platen or pillow, whatever it might be. If we don't have a pressure readout, any tips for what it should feel like to lock down to get a light, medium, or a heavy pressure?
Well, the way I kind of do the feel is if I can lock it down with one hand, pretty easily I'm at a light pressure. Two hands pretty easily is a medium, and then if I've really got to kind of almost jump on it, then I know it's got to be a
jump
firm
on
pressure.
It. All right, so, and I see this at all the shows, is somebody will walk up in the booth, and they'll literally jump on the heat press with two hands to get it to lock down to apply a transfer. Odds are that is too much pressure, almost for any strength level, even if you're small and petite. If you're having to jump and lock it down with two hands, you're probably on a heavy pressure. In general, most people apply way too much pressure to an application, and that may not matter on a t-shirt. When you start to get into bags and performance wear, that's going to work against you with leaving heat press marks.
Right, absolutely.
All right, let's dig back into our bag for the next question.
I'll pull one out here. I can't reach or pull down the handle of my heat press. My back aches. Are there alternatives to make it easier?
Grow longer arms. No, so you can't reach and pull down the handle of your heat press and you have issues with your back, or there are alternatives to make it easier. I mean, I would say just a more comfortable operating height. So there are height adjustable stands like the heat press caddy. There is the heat press cart like our Fusion's on over here. I'll pan down here. Joe, if you can get an angle of that heat press cart. That's a height adjustable sort of table that can be added on to any heat press. There's a sort of crank on it there that you can turn to raise it to a more comfortable operating height, or you could simply just get a table that's a better height. Generally, if we look up at our Fusion here, you can see the handle is sort of over the back, so you're definitely going to have to reach over the heater area and over the top of the control panel to get to the handle, but it shouldn't be that difficult if you have it at a comfortable operating height, or in some cases, maybe if you have a step stool or whatever is required near the machine.
Yeah, I definitely think having a table or a stand that's adjustable is huge.
Okay. All right, good. So I know that's been a challenge, especially for those that are vertically challenged, but...
I don't know what you're talking about.
Right, operate at a lower height. And then, of course, if you're looking to upgrade heat press, my personal favorite is the one without a handle, and that's the Hotronix Air Fusion, where it's simply two-button operation. It keeps it simple. A lot of folks that have issues reaching the handle of a clamshell or even the Fusion press love the Air Fusion because the buttons are right up in front and you can actually operate the press standing straight up and not having to bend your back at all because you simply have to reach up to lock it down.
It's a nice press.
You like that one?
It is a nice one.
All right. As questions come in, Joe, just stop us and feel free to throw them in. If you folks have questions, nothing's off limits here. And let's go to the next question. This is related to vinyl. I'm having trouble with multicolor heat transfer vinyl applications, and I can't seem to get it right. What are some of the tips?
So multicolor vinyl transfers are obviously a big sore spot of mine. I do love them, but they're difficult for a lot of decorators, and it's like a hidden tip that we give here at Stahls for all of our products where you can actually take the background layer. The challenge, I guess, normally is that the top layer doesn't line up the way it looks like in the artwork. Assuming you've cut everything correctly and didn't resize anything, it should match perfectly. So if you take that bottom layer and you just tack it for 2 seconds instead of going through your full application, you'll find that it doesn't shrink as much as it does with a full application, so it makes alignment a lot easier. So look for, I guess, where those application settings are available.
Yeah, I agree. So that helps. If you happen to be working with a stretchy film like Premium Plus or a stretch fabric, sometimes that's a little bit more difficult to do. Easier said than done. Even at the 2-second fast tack, it's sort of stretching the garment or the bottom layer. And so there are just some challenges that are going to be tough to overcome. So if you have that sort of combination of stretch shirt with stretch film, large design, that's tremendously difficult. You may actually want to switch over to like a print cut film or a screen printed transfer or something that's a single step application for your multicolor work. Where possible, because that, or just sell single color stuff for those applications.
Right, it's a good one. Okay. More vinyl challenges. Why isn't my vinyl staying true to its color when it's pressed onto a dark shirt?
Why isn't my vinyl staying true to its color? Okay, so first, let's talk a little bit about the composition of the film. It's polyurethane. It's not traditionally vinyl or polyvinyl chloride. And polyurethane-based materials in general have a standard adhesive on it, most of the stuff that we manufacture. And what you're actually seeing when it's changing color is bleed through. So when you see the white film turning pink on a red shirt, or you see what looks like mold spots in the film is really your black shirt migrating through your white film. These are all photos we've seen from customers. You need to address that in one of two ways. Number one is you address it with a heat transfer film that has a dye inhibitor, or that's low bleed. And so either through thickness, a thicker material like thermofilm, or one with a charcoal-based adhesive like Sublastop can help to prevent those dyes from a polyester fabric bleeding through. And the key is, if I didn't mention it, polyester is known to want to bleed through your print, not cotton. And if you can't address it through a film, or you want to maintain a very lightweight feel on the shirt, you just simply source a cationic polyester from your apparel supplier, if they have one available, which are highly unlikely to bleed. So we get a garment that's a better quality, pay a little more, but you get a better finished result. Those are typically the two bleed-through areas that I see. Do you ever see any issues on like cotton or any other fabric content?
I don't see any issues with cotton, but one challenge I think people have with other transfer types on cotton is just understanding opacity and knowing the difference between dye migration and opacity.
Okay.
So I think that's important to note, that opacity is always usually with a vinyl transfer not an issue, because you have that white background layer that's blocking the color of the fabric. But if you're going to put a clear transfer, whether it's a inkjet transfer paper or a print cut transfer material on a dark garment, then of course the color is not going to show up, and that's usually a challenge with those materials.
Agree. And even in screen printed transfer formulas, there's ones that are built a little bit thicker to maintain true white on darker color fabrics, and then there's ones that are designed to be softer and thinner, and they let a little bit of show through of the dark color, like the hot split transfers from Transfer Express.
Right.
All right, Joe, any questions coming in yet? No questions. Quiet bunch today. All right, so let's ask you a question. Let's launch our next poll, if you still have one available there. And if you don't mind reading me the results of the opening poll.
On the opening poll of how many employees does your business have, 67% of the viewers are the only employee,
Okay.
and 33% have 1 to 3.
Okay, so some small shops, good. We'll
So
hopefully
we'll
help you
launch
grow.
the poll, and this one is, how many years has your business been in operation?
All right, so we'll give you a second to fill that out. We'll keep working, and I'll ask the next question while we're waiting on the results there. This is a good one. I think you've done this before.
No, not me.
Not you. You're perfect, right? I printed my design to the upper platen. How do I get this off or avoid this? All right, so if you've pressed your transfer upside down and you have a gooey situation on the upper platen, what happens next?
Well, you need to clean it off.
Okay.
Obviously, you want to be careful not to transfer it. I think here at our office, we normally just walk away from the press and wait for the next person to think they ruined it.
Set up the camera and see what happens?
Yeah. But no, you're going to have to clean that off. Hopefully, you have a coated upper platen that makes it easier to clean off. So if you have a Hotronix heat press that's coated, you can obviously use a Gojo or some type of cleaner to just kind of wipe it off there.
Yeah, so a key would be like Gojo, like a non-abrasive industrial hand cleaner. The last thing you want to do is use something abrasive and scrape or damage that upper platen. So something like that, often you don't even need a hand cleaner. You just need a damp cloth, and whether you wipe it off while it's slightly warm or cool, just being careful not to burn yourself. Typically, you can clean most of the stuff off of the top platen very easily. If you're having an issue, get that non-abrasive hand cleaner like Gojo is a great selection that's available from Home Depot and other stores like that.
Right, and I think this is a good time to mention cover sheets are important.
You need this?
So if you, yeah, you taught me not to use them. So if you use a cover sheet over top of your transfers, obviously that'll help them stick to the cover sheet if you put them upside down and not onto your platen. So that's helpful.
Absolutely. All right, what are results of our poll?
Okay, so on the poll of how many years has your business been in operation, 18% are less than a year, 33% 1 to 3 years, 15% 4 to 7 years, 33% 7+.
Okay, good. So a good mix, and a lot of folks that are in business for a long length of time. Congratulations on that. A lot of businesses don't make it past the first 18 months, just in general, not necessarily in our industry. So
Right.
being in business more than that is quite the accomplishment. Okay, so this is a long one. Let me read this. I have an autoclam. I watched the video on the cinch bag, laptop bag, and duffel bag recently, and the design was applied by changing the platen. But on my press, I can't remove the platen. How can I apply the same design without melting the zipper? And I think we kind of covered this, but if you want to reiterate the answer.
Yeah, I think depending on the bag, obviously you want to get a flat print area is most important before you're worried about melting the zipper. So using these, again, these print perfect pads, these pillows are very helpful. If you have a plastic zipper on the item, if it's a bag or even a jacket that has a plastic zipper, you just want to be careful to make sure to protect that with something like the flexible application pad. So I don't have one here, but it's just a stretchy kind of silicone cover sheet that works to protect heat-sensitive items like plastic.
Yeah, and that's actually, I had a question at the seminar in Long Beach. Somebody wanted to heat press those high visibility jackets with the 3M reflective stripes already on it, and the flexible application pad is great for that. Anytime you have that area of heat sensitivity and you can't sort of get it off the press, it's nice to have that flex pad handy where you can trim it off and sort of cover those areas to protect them while you apply your transfer. And just in general, the flex pad, I typically don't recommend it for applying directly over top of a transfer that's going to be laundered. If you're decorating like a bag, a shoe, something that's not going to be laundered, padfolio, you can use that and feel free, but you start to alter those recommended application instructions if you use it on top of a wearable like a t-shirt, performance tee, whatever it might be. Okay. All right. I'm having trouble with my shirt, material scorching or discoloring. What options do I have? You want to kick us off on scorching issues, which seems to be a challenge more and more with the rise of performance wear?
Right, and I think it's not even performance wear we're seeing it. We're seeing it with tri-blends as well. So it's kind of the nature where you go in thinking it's a 100% cotton t-shirt and you throw it on the heat press, apply 365, and it starts to scorch because of the mixtures of rayon and polyester that are in tri-blend. So one big solution that we always harp on here is just using a low temperature adhesive transfer. So products like CAD-CUT Premium Plus, Elastiprint screen printed transfers, tech products that Stahls offers, all of those are recommended for low temperature, and we're starting to see a lot more products advance in the low temperature category so we can print all of these synthetic fabrics successfully.
Yeah, and even if you're screen printing, just finding an ink that cures at a lower temperature so when you run it through the dryer or the oven, it's running at a lower temperature, so it's not going to damage the shirt or even shrink it up to a point where it looks like a halter top instead of a t-shirt. So we had that issue from one of the panels in Long Beach as well where they said it's shrunk like this much.
Yeah.
So yeah, just making sure heat sensitive garments are not heated. And we see the big culprits being performance wear, tri-blends, jackets, basically anything that enters a synthetic fabric into the equation that's not 100% cotton.
So not cotton.
Right, and even ring spun cotton can be an issue because you have the surface of that's a little more heat sensitive. So although it's typically not permanent and will wash out, you can damage that cotton when you give it to a customer, which doesn't create the first experience. So I think in general, lower is better when it comes to temperature out there in the industry.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to sort of make one up as we go because I think it's important because we have a lot of people that are relatively low number of employees and they've been in business for a while. And so it's great and you may be comfortable right where you're at, but if these decorators want to scale and grow their business, sort of what are some things to consider as you look to perhaps hire your first employee or grow the business bigger than what you are today?
Yeah, I think it's trying to understand who you want to hire and where you want to place them in position-wise. So do you want to place them in a position to do a lot of, is your specialty sales and marketing, is your specialty printing items? And you need to either hire somebody that can supplement you in that other aspect. Now, of course, if you hire more salespeople and you start to sell more products, you're probably going to need to backfill your production side as well. So that's one thing I always consider is where am I hiring my first employee at? Yeah,
so a strong strategy towards talent acquisition and really planning out 3 to 5 years how you grow your business. I think, a good way to know if it's time to jump to hiring an employee is if you're starting to burn that midnight oil and put in those, 12, 14-hour shifts at more of a consistent basis. It's either time to hire to offload some of the production. Other ways to address that is find some good contractors or people that can fulfill for you. You can effectively scale the business with subcontracting out some of the decoration for different disciplines that make sense, or you can try to find ways to print faster, like a a heat press with more throughput, like a dual air fusion, or an automatic screen printing press versus a manual, more heads of embroidery. There's ways to do it that way as well. But when you go to hire, I think it's an important leap for any business to extend beyond the friends and family. Hire your first real employee. Seriously, and not that those aren't real employees, I shouldn't have said it that way, but hire your first sort of paid employee where you sort of discipline out, pay structure, and build the infrastructure to really scale the business to something larger if you want it to be there.
And I think one of the challenges with that is always just control. You're afraid to give up the money that you're making from those midnight hours to somebody else, or you're worried about obviously control of how it's printed or how the quality is going to be if you're not the one creating the garment. But I think you'll find that by scaling, you'll end up in a better position by giving up a lot of that control and just trusting other people.
Do you like to give up control?
I do.
You do? Are you good at delegating? Would you say you're good at delegating?
I am wonderful at delegating.
I'm terrible at it. And so I think that's a good test for you. I read an article once that said if somebody can do the job at 50% of what you can do it, then delegate it. Because a lot of folks want to, nobody can heat press and line it up as straight as me. Well, we know that's true. You can't do that as straight as me. Or you can't sell as good as me, or whatever it might be in whatever instance. Delegating it is important because that'll help you establish that trust and credibility and really find out the weaknesses and where you need to create maybe a training program or curriculum or sort of some tools to allow you to scale and hire appropriately. So I think we have a question coming in from the viewers. We can go ahead and read that.
Yeah, Jamie is using CADWorks Live to design. And when selecting materials such as, say, Premium Plus or Glitter Flake, is that only for a visual effect, or is that important in any other way in the CADWorks Live programming?
In the actual designer, it's simply for a visual effect. Some of the color palettes are just in there in a way that lets you visualize and create a virtual sample that matches the color palette of the actual material. So it's simply for that reason at this point. Okay, good. So let's aim for one more question before we wrap things up here. By the way, if you didn't get a chance to watch last week's morning show, we had some issues broadcasting it live. It is up on stahlstv.com. It's all about heat printing headwear. It's about a 20 to 25-minute session with a lot of hands-on application. It can be found under the broadcast archive under events. I'm going to skip this. Well, I'll read it. All right, my vinyl design heat printed backwards. What did I do wrong? You pressed it backwards.
Or you created the transfer and didn't mirror it.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
So mirroring in general is important in the heat transfer world. There's very few products that you don't mirror or reverse when you're cutting them, printing them, whatever. Good example of that is a print cut media, an opaque print cut media. But other than that, we're operating in mirror image here in the world of apparel decoration, specifically with heat printing. All right, we got another question. Let's take another question.
Kyle says that they have some tech shirts to print with Glitter Flake.
Okay.
What do you recommend settings for printing temperature using the Glitter Flake on those shirts?
So Glitter Flake, the recommended application is off the top of my head is like 320 or 330 for 15 seconds. So I would recommend trying the actual application to make sure the garment's not going to be damaged. Assuming it's a loose fit performance polyester, I've seen success at 300 degrees as the lowest temperature for 10 to 15 seconds with durability. It's actually an application setting I've personally used on track jackets and wash tested myself and have had luck with it. But anytime you sort of break that application, you want to just test it, maybe run one through a laundering cycle. But I would feel comfortable at 300 degrees for 10 to 15 seconds. If you start to go lower than that, you may have to sell into an alternative finish.
We've been asked, when will the new version of CADWorks Live be released?
The new version of CADWorks Live, the launch date is yet to be determined, but we're expecting to get our demo of it in the office here this week, which we're excited about from the CADWorks team, and hopefully we'll have more info to share with you next week. I think within the next 3 months would be a good expectation for that.
That's the last question I have.
All right, so we're approaching the 25-minute mark, and so I think it's a good time to sort of conclude the Stahls TV morning show. As decorators are sort of mulling over some of the questions you may have in your business, feel free to post those on the Stahls TV forum. Courtney and I and a lot of the other folks here at Stahls TV do review those forums and try to respond as quickly as possible to help you in your business. And a cool thing on the Stahls TV homepage, we added a new section, Last 12 Videos. So if you always want to see the freshest content, click right on that Last 12 Videos, and we have all kinds of stuff going up. And something big just happened last week here at Stahls TV. We got a new toy. What was it?
We did. We got an embroidery machine, so something different from us because we have lots of heat presses, but it's exciting. We're going to actually use it next week in the morning show, and we're going to talk a lot about how to add applique and really expand with applique in your business. So
you learned how to embroider last night.
I learned how to embroider. It was harder than heat printing.
Yeah, and we thank the folks at ZSK for providing an embroidery machine, and we look forward to teaching all sorts of things with how to grow your business with applique and a little bit more in that discipline and how it goes well with heat printing. So thanks for watching the Stahls TV Morning Show, and we'll talk to you next week.